So ICE just killed another person in Minnesota we talked about in the last video, and now I want to look at what people are saying. So first, this is from Stephen Hayes. Stephen says, responsible observers will wait for more information and context before drawing firm conclusions. But one thing we can say right now, DHS and its spokesman are not responsible observers. It's deeply irresponsible to put out such a statement now before any investigation. But DHS and its officials have a long track record of making claims that are premature and often false. This is another one from Tom. Tom says, everyone needs to focus in on the key points here, all of them, okay? The victim was down, overwhelmed by many agents. I've seen numbers saying 7, maybe 8, but yes, the victim was on the ground. The victim had been disarmed by one of the agents. They executed him anyway, and there was multiple shots. But lastly, and even more troubling, once he's been shot and down, an agent pumps him in the back 3 more times. Folks, there's no defending this as an American, so beware of the people that are. And Trump is going to lie, despite the video and the claim the guy was armed and trying to kill agents, and turn the PR tables will likely use this the Insurrection Act. This is dictator level stuff. So point being, though, the Trump people are going to lie and probably try to send the military, which I agree is a high chance of that. And that's why facts do matter in these situations. This is actually an interesting one. This is the Gun Owners of America. They have a statement. Now, listen to what they say. This is from the Gun Owners of America statement in Minnesota shooting. We are saddened by the loss of life in Minneapolis, Minnesota, earlier today during a federal law enforcement operation. Because details remain limited and facts are still emerging, it is essential that the Justice Department conduct a complete, transparent, and prompt investigation so the public can fully understand what occurred and maintain confidence in the rule of law. Furthermore, we condemn, this is from the gun people, we condemn untoward comments of the U.S. Attorney Isley, and that's this dude down here, Bill Isley, I guess his name is. Federal agents are not, quote, highly likely to be, quote, legally justified in, quote, shooting concealed licensees who approach while lawfully carrying a firearm. The Second Amendment protects Americans' rights to bear arms while protesting, a right the federal government must not infringe upon. Finally, the left must stop antagonizing ICE Gov and CBP agents who are taking criminals off the streets and play a crucial role in protecting communities and upholding the rule of law. So just be clear on this stuff. I don't necessarily agree with everything that the gun people say. I just want to give you different points of view because I think it's good to look at everyone, what they're saying. The Isley person saying, if you approach law enforcement with a gun, there is high likelihood they will be legally justified in shooting you. That's coming from the Trump people. And this is why it matters to the gun people saying, well, because every day they always say, I want to carry guns and holsters or whatever, right? Second Amendment stuff. And then if the Trump people are saying, well, we can just basically shoot anyone, we can go anyone's house without a warrant. I mean, they're just lawless at this point. And this is when you're seeing different points of view emerge. Here's another one. This is directly from the Homeland Security. Let's see what they say. They say at 9:05 a.m. Central Time, as DHS law enforcement officers were conducting a target operation in Minneapolis against an illegal alien wanted for violent assault, an individual approached the U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun seen here. And they're going to show you the picture of the gun. The problem is, though, with this narrative is he threatening the officers? Is the gun out? What I've seen mostly is just he has a phone there. And then also the person was shot after he's basically on the ground and being detained by multiple agents. So this is where their story doesn't really make sense. That's why you have to look at the facts first. I'm just showing you everything. The officers attempted to disarm the suspect, but the armed suspect violently resisted. More details of the armed struggle are forthcoming. And this is where facts matter also. Did the suspect, again, threaten anyone's life? Was there any danger to the agents, right? You want to look at this stuff. Fearing for his life, and that's going to be from DHS, that's what they say. And lies of federal officers, an agent fired defensive shots. They're going to call it defensive. I just want to point this stuff out. Medics on the scene immediately delivered medical aid to the subject, but was pronounced dead at the scene. The suspect had 2 magazines and no ID. It looks like a situation where an individual wanted to maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. And that goes back to here. make sure that, DHS is putting out basically premature statements before any kind of investigation. And it's tough in this social media driven environment where people just jump to conclusions. That's why I try to show you as much as I can, right? It doesn't mean I agree with everything. And sometimes people get mad and say, oh, Chris, why don't you come to conclusion right away? It's like, I look at everything, and I think it's fair to look as many facts as possible, as many angles as possible, different points of views as possible. That's what due process and fairness looks like. And that's the world that I want to live in. I don't want to live in just, okay, I've decided that I'm on a certain team and therefore my team has to always win. I can just see from the language of DHS that they're untrustworthy. I know from the track record they're untrustworthy, but I still look at everything that is being presented to me. I think it's the most fair way to look at this stuff. Even if I don't like these people, I just want to make that clear, guys, because again, we live in this crazy world where you're supposed to make up your mind before anything, and I just wanted to be clear on that. But this kind of stuff is an example of like they're made up their mind already, and they use charged language. For example, then they'll say 200 rioters, which that's their point of view. I would say protester arrived at the scene and began to obstruct and assault. I would say obstruct or barricades, right? Now, are they assaulting law enforcement on the scene? I have not seen any evidence of that, but that's only what they say. Crowd control measures were deployed for the safety of the public and law enforcement. They're basically shooting tear gas at people. The situation evolving and more information is forthcoming. And you're getting these, strange situations where Second Amendment people are going more left, and left people are now going more right if they're defending the Second Amendment, that kind of stuff. So I'll just be clear on this stuff. I don't want anyone having guns on the streets. I just don't think that's good. That's just my opinion. You can be upset with that. That's fine. Everyone has a right to their opinion. But it is an odd situation now to where even the gun people are calling this stuff out, because from the gun people's point of view, if you're a big gun person, they're like, oh, you should be able to carry a gun wherever in USA. So there's that. This is more, though. This person has a really good point. After this is over, we need to pass a law that makes social media posts from official agency accounts like this subject to perjury. It is too destructive to the country to let them keep lying and lying and lying without any possible legal remedy. That's actually a really good point, right? Actually, the other one that happened recently as well is where the Trump people put out the photo. They arrested someone, and then they put out like a fake photo of that person crying. And this is where, like, in this day and age, this is where you got to be really careful these days, where people can just make, AI generated video and photos and stuff, right? And so this would be an example where, like, you may start to see fake stuff out there. It is a crazy world these days because it's hard to know what the truth is anymore. And for some people, they just have their mind made up already from the very beginning. I'm just not like that. I saw the video for myself. You probably saw it also. For me, it was pretty clear. Like, why are you firing multiple times? The person's already on the ground. It's horrific. This is another point of view. This is from Will. Will says, I have always avoided talking about politics on this account, but this is my breaking point. I can't say nothing while ICE is going around executing people in broad daylight in my city, blocks from where I live. They murdered a second person this morning, and I don't want to hear for a second that, quote, he had a gun. Republicans' entire thing is about being pro-Second Amendment. That people have the right to be armed against a tyrannical government. Now, a textbook example of government tyranny unfolds before you, and your immediate response is to take their side. It makes no sense. There were at least 7 federal agents on top of that man. If he was armed, the video appears to show that he was disarmed before these shots were fired. There's absolutely zero justification for his killing. This is yet another example of these ICE agents being untrained, hate-filled escalators who are seeking out this kind of violence. They aren't making our community safer. They're making it 1,000 times more dangerous. Everyone can agree that violent criminals of all backgrounds should be prosecuted and jailed. A conversation can be had about immigration policy, but this isn't working. This has to stop. ICE has to get out of Minneapolis. I think this is a reasonable point of view from Will. I don't have any disagreements on any of this stuff. And, I'm fine with having honest conversations about any of these things. And I think it's so important. And it's frustrating for me because, again, too many people got their minds made up already. Everyone just starts yelling at each other, etc. And yes, I completely understand, guys. ICE just killed another person. I totally understand what's going on. I saw it for myself. I think it's terrible. I think ICE should leave immediately. I make that 100% clear. And I'm just giving different points of views of what people are saying about it. Megan says, looks like the victim himself never drew a gun. The agents found it in his waistband and grabbed it, then shot him dead, although he was already unarmed and subdued. If I'd seen this overseas as a foreign correspondent, I would have called it a summary extrajudicial execution, right? So just imagine if you saw the scene in another country, how would you feel? And oftentimes when I talk with you guys about this stuff, I'm talking to, people that may not necessarily agree with me because, MAGA people watch this stuff the same way that you watch this stuff. I know MAGA people aren't in droves watch my channel, but the point is though, is I just want to have real conversations about what's happening. Here's another person from Zach. Zach says, I try not to jump to conclusions, but this Minnesota shooting looks really bad. The deceased had a permit to carry his firearm. The video suggests he was confronted by ICE for filming with his phone. Okay. So far, no evidence that he drew or brandished his weapon in any way. Video suggests that he was disarmed by agents before any shots were fired. Video shows an agent unloading his gun on the deceased while he was laying on the ground and in no way a threat to officers. Yeah, the multiple shot. I mean, there's multiple things look bad, but it's important to, look at facts. Facts do matter in this stuff. Here's a representative says, public safety is the first duty of government. ICE is not just failing to protect public safety in Minnesota. It is an active threat to it. The president must end this operation immediately and allow for a thorough investigation by state and local law enforcement. Republicans in Congress must agree to Democrats' longstanding demands for root-level reform, disband the paramilitary, so ICE, disband the paramilitary that has ballooned over the last year, and masking and warrantless street grabs, and train to the standards of due process and professionalism fitting a free people. Here's more. Jeff says, this is absolutely shameful. Agents of a federal agency unnecessarily escalating and then executing a defenseless citizen whose offense appears to be using his cell phone camera. Every person, regardless of political affiliation, should be denouncing this. And, multiple people are calling this out. And it's important to have these conversations because I think people who are going to defend what the Trump people did here, the ICE, it just really exposes them as, frankly, being liars, untrustworthy, and dishonest. And I as anyone who, appreciates the rule of law, due process, these kind of things, you're seeing it exposes you if you are dishonest in this situation, like when there's clear evidence of what's happening. Here's Aiden Johnson. This is a gun person, real gun lobbyist. I'm Antifa now. I guess the Justice Department is back to targeting gun owners as domestic terrorists. You want illegals and criminals off the streets and not want to see CCW permit holders get executed for, quote, approaching law enforcement. And what it is, this person's replying to the that Bill Isley person here. Ignore the Antifa, quote, pro-2A accounts working overtime to justify violence against law enforcement. No one is buying it, and we will restore law and order on American streets. And this is weird post here that the Isley guy is making because, what violence are you referring to in this situation? Again, I didn't hear anyone say that the person who was killed, his name is Preddy, I want to say his name is. I don't hear anything where he was like brandishing weapons or fired any shots, these kind of things. And then the ICE people say, oh, well, my life was threatened. That's what they're going to try to say. But that's why the facts do matter in this stuff. Here's another person. This is says, I can't tell you how weird it is to say that as a conservative, so that's what they're saying, but my president, my government does not speak for me. I believe in law and liberty. I'm grateful for the sacrifice of our allies in that cause. I pray for those suffering beneath the boot of tyrants. That's coming from Greg. Here's another point of view from Lior. The DHS video out of Minnesota looks very bad. It looks like an execution done out of anger. This requires immediate and impartial investigation. We can't become Iran. Protection against government used to be a sacred conservative principle. Another one from Brad. Brad says, the gap between the lies our federal government is telling us and the truth we see with our own two effing eyes is growing every minute. Think critically. No one is safe with ICE here. Please leave Minnesota, please. And also you have this from Annie. Annie says, Trump's mass federal agents just executed another protester, shot him in cold blood. A nurse, a citizen. Believe what you see, not what they say. This is indefensible and must be stopped now. So I just want to give you guys different points of view on this stuff. You already probably know my point of view. I mean, I saw it for myself. It's the whole thing's horrific. The whole everything is bad about this. It's bad all around. ICE needs to leave. You can't just have all these armed guys, thugs, mass thugs. I mean, just shooting people on the street. And Trump is looking for just escalation. You can tell. And as this one person I mentioned earlier before, Trump's probably looking for a reason for Insurrection Act, call the military on the streets, right, et cetera. So I'll just say this: everything's really, really deeply concerning right now, and you know how the situation is in USA. Everyone knows, right? And I don't want to. I'll just leave it at that, and I'll catch you in the next video.